relax, play some solitaire as we continue our journey to 1,000. Let's put our jokers and promos back in their box, shuffle up our cards, and begin our night. It's just so fun cracking open a new deck every night as we go through and try to get to 1,000. And I'm gonna give you a little secret right now. Those aren't all of the new decks either. There are more than you have just seen. Anyway, let that sink in as we get into our first game. So let's clear up the field and deal out game number 1. Now tonight's gonna be a bit tough to find something to talk about regarding Prismatic, because my first impressions from this deck are somewhat Christmas coded, and it makes me think of kaleidoscopes. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. It's been since elementary school, thinking about one of those things. And there we go. Double tens to start our night, but a few plays to follow. King of spades down early. And let's get this going as we have triple tens officially. That's a really satisfying ace. I actually think this deck, the backgrounds especially, remind me of a little bit of the southwest of America. There we go. This is kind of coded in New Mexico, some Texas in there as well. It's actually quite pleasing, with a little bit of a mosaic touch. I like it so far. It feels good in triple tens with triple fours. I hate to say it, but we might be done right when we started. Unless we get incredibly lucky. There we go. That might be a little bit of the luck that we need. 2, 3, 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter for the hearts at the moment. Don't worry, I'll think of something to share about this deck. And it looks like that is the end of our first game. The only plays left that we can make are as follows. So now time to show the double check, as there's nowhere for that queen, jack, and queen. I did not even notice that. Rough start, but you know we'll be right back at it as we get into our second game. And here we go. We have a 7, a jack, a king, double sevens, double queens, double fives, double sixes. Make that triple sixes with double jacks. Pretty tough. Casino shuffle time. guess a better way of describing this deck would be the American idea of a European, Northern European Christmas. Tell me that's not spot on. Just imagine a large Swedish man dressed in a sweater with this pattern, or Russian or Finnish person. I think that's pretty close. And you know what? This deck is actually fairly consistent, so let's get into our deck rating for this one. The coloring of the back design is really pleasing, a bit festive, warm and welcoming. So that's a big plus. And adding the metallics design as well makes it more and more satisfying. Triple kings and double eights. Why are we so lucky? The regular card designs are actually somewhat nice. I see this being a good game, a good deck to play games with a friend or family member. It is definitely durable. It could handle some wear and tear. And it doesn't focus too much on the designs in the middle. It's a plus and a minus at the same time, but benefit of the doubt. A very satisfying ace of spades, and make that any ace at all. The only thing I would have to criticize are the face cards. It feels like they're a bit lacking unnecessarily. It leaves you wanting more. So that's probably the only fair criticism about this deck. So all things considered, I think an 8.5 is fairly comfortable. It is very durable. I want to make sure to highlight that. And can handle quite a few games, as miraculously we place down all of our kings. And we are kind of rolling at the moment. And this game looked like it would be over very quickly. Good and good. I'm really struggling trying to think of something to talk about with this deck. The only thing I could remember or kind of relate is back in elementary school. There would be a day where we would build kaleidoscopes for whatever reason. It was a science unit. Whoa, my voice is a little scratchy, I guess. Anyway, a science unit in class. So we learned about kaleidoscopes and light refraction. And I remember it would lead up to us going to one of the local universities to explore their science department. And in that, I Good comeback, but not quite close enough. And I remember on that trip how weird it was just staring up in the darkness and seeing all the flashing lights, stars, pretty colors, and then it started showing us some nature for whatever reason. I remember afterwards it took us to this games area, or I guess kind of like a circus sideshow event area, where they had one of these huge tables where you'd put a coin on it and it would swirl slowly down into the middle. Actually, let's do a couple more shuffles. And it took probably a minute for it to get all the way down, and it just made the entire class stare in awe. Another thing was the class would weigh themselves on a scale that calculated their weight on the moon. And at the time I thought, what is this silly little gimmick that they have here for this science building? I mean, it's cool, but it looked very expensive, so I wondered why they dedicated so much towards that. Probably for the kids, honestly. Maybe that machine right there inspired some kids to pursue a higher level of education in a scientific field, including astronomy, space exploration, and who knows what, maybe even physics, as we have double queens to start. Maybe that's what it was for. I just remember leaving that place and everyone was like, whoa, that was so cool. And then my friends and I were kind of, I guess, a little cynical about it. But we still enjoyed the trip, because who doesn't enjoy leaving class and school for a day? On another trip, I remember in this much cooler building, I think it was near UC Berkeley or so, there was this huge science building that had actual, it had a much higher level of sophistication and visual appeal than the other university, and our class was much older at the time, and we only spent about half an hour there, and that kind of bummed me out, because there was actually something cool to look at and learn about, and yet it was only just a glimpse. I wonder why. I think one of the coolest things in that exhibit was there was this room where it would, since I live in California, earthquakes could be fairly common depending on your region where you live, since there are plenty of fault lines around here. And this room would mimic specific, I forget the exact word, but the severity of earthquakes and what it would do in that room. And I remember some kids freaking out and coming to tears when the simulation would happen. And it's not like I don't know, I can't say for sure. I was gonna say it's not like they lived in an earthquake, but that's an older thought. Maybe they did. But I think I remember some of them saying, oh no, I never been in one before, as that's the end of game number 3. Double 8s, 6, 7, 10. All we could do is 2, 3, and nothing else. So basically, I remember a couple of them saying they cried just because it was weird and new and thought it was a real earthquake. And this room was probably, let's say, let me look at this room real quick for reference. Probably 12 by 12 feet at least. No. 16 feet by 16 feet. Those 6s have been a pain tonight. And I think they'll allow 10 people in the room or so at a time. And the room, like if this were the ground level, it would go up like this, like crazy. I didn't do it because we had to leave before I got a chance, but that looked fun. I think in elementary school, science is one of the most fun things to learn about, even the boring stuff. I remember, it's funny how we've gotten to science with the prismatic deck. I remember even the boring stuff about sedimentary rock was interesting, how you could pick up something that's been around for thousands of years, and depending on the rock, you could identify it, break it open, and you're pretty much able to count how old that rock could be by looking at the types of layers that lie inside or within. Even rocks were interesting to me. I think one of the cooler things was when we did science experiments, and it was an annual thing where once a year we would do a science experiment, and it was always the same thing. We would get a cheap little plastic bottle, fill it with baking soda and vinegar, as that's a nice triplet to see at the start. And then we would make a little volcano out of clay, Play-Doh, beforehand, and research about different types of volcanic eruptions, recent volcanic eruptions, what happens, the lava, the magma, temperatures, all that stuff. But everyone just wanted to make the volcano. And I think when I was in maybe 2nd grade, they allowed us to do our own mixing proportions of baking soda and vinegar, or bring our own ingredients, I guess. And one kid put way too much baking soda inside, or vinegar, one or the other, and it made a very large eruption. And it freaked out the kid because they didn't expect so much to come out. And since then, they had to then pre-portion out how much mixture we would have for each volcano. And we did that for about 4 years in a row. And every time, people were excited for it. And rightfully so. And back to this game, so we've had a pretty good time getting aces, but building on those aces has been a completely different story. Wow. Do you remember any of your favorite science experiments or class projects? I think one of the lamest ones, for me, was making a rain stick. And all we did was get a tube of paper towels, a I just thought that was the dumbest thing to get excited about or the idea. But I know teachers are trying. But come on now. We had volcanoes, we had... Okay, so before that, for reference, we built a mission out of clay and lots, I think, plaster, a whole bunch of materials. That was probably the size of this field as a class, and it took us about 2 weeks to do that. As I think that might be the end of this one, so let's see if there are any plays left. Nowhere for that 7, 9, 7 once again, 6 or 8. Just tough. Another triplet appears. Can't build on our aces, and we move on to our last game without much results, without many results. So if you don't know what a mission is a Catholic, an older Catholic area where many priests and people who followed Catholicism would set up communities along typically the coastal line of California, as well as I think Southern America, Southwest America, and they're like little holy spots. And we went to visit, I think, 2 missions in 4th grade. And for our mission project, we would have to write up, I think, a 5-page paper about details with pictures of people of the mission, details, agriculture, and just how it functioned. And then we had a group of 3 or so to make the mission that we were focusing on into a model. And come to think of it, that was a very cool school idea for kids to do. Even the report was fine. I remember liking it so much and enjoying that a lot. And then the next year, our only class experiment was a rain stick. That lasted about half an hour. Anyway, on to our final game of the night. Prismatic. I don't even know what that reminds me of anymore. Christmas still. And science, apparently. You think we're gonna get triple threes? Ooh, double threes, double eights, nothing to do. Let's see how we finish up our night, my friend. As so far, we start a little bit rough, but rough isn't always bad. Let's see if we can turn it around. Okay, that worried me for a second. There we go. Now we have some spacing going on. And there's our triple three set. I knew it would come eventually, and there it is. Put down that 10, pray for in a 9, 7, jack. There's our black 6. Honestly, I almost missed that. The thing that sucks right now, though, is that there are so many cards on this side that we have not tapped into. And I think that will be our demise if we don't come across soon as we get yet another 6. And now we need a black 5 and a black king to stay alive. Wow, the game where we need aces, none of them are coming. And just like that, my friend, what a way to cap off a tough night. As there's nowhere for that 8, 6, 4, or 2. No place left to make. So that is the end of this episode. Very tough night with a very pleasing deck. Not the results we would like, but at least we're one step closer to 1,000. With a new deck to the collection, as we have double kings, double aces, double 7s, triple aces, double 5s, triple 5s, and quadruple aces. You know what? Comment, that's nasty. There we go. A tough one indeed. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, friend. You know I did. Even in loss, there's still something to gain. And with that, I hope you have yourself a relaxing remainder of your night. Many, many sweet dreams. And until we meet again, stay safe and eat your fruits and vegetables.